Welcome to our brand new horror movie podcast. I am one of the hosts, Logan, and to my left...
I'm Harley, one of the co-hosts. Also the person who's going to edit this podcast.
And then to my right...
I'm Trevor, also known as Papa Sauce.
And then to the left of Trevor...
I'm Liz.
Hi,
Two
Liz.
is right, stupid.
Yeah, it's my
Well,
right.
it's my left.
Well, that's still
It's
your
also
right,
your
actually.
left.
Well, no, dude, that's
Right?
that's your right.
I'm looking at Trevor, and then there's to the left.
We're in a crescent.
That's a right.
Yeah, that's your right, my dude.
That's a right.
No, that's my left.
Oh, if you're talking about like, okay, yeah, I
Look,
see what
L,
you're saying.
left.
If you're talking about like a circle, yeah.
But you said to his left.
No,
Shit,
to
dude,
my
I'm
left.
confused.
Like, we're not even
Whatever.
talking about the movie
Whatever.
yet.
All right.
Yeah, let's talk about the movie.
So we just watched The Nightmare from 2015, directed by Rodney Ascher.
Yeah, it's a documentary on sleep paralysis. I think we all kind of thought was super interesting,
Yeah.
you know.
It describes some of like the sleep paralysis situations very well, I thought.
It's pretty relatable, I think.
Yeah, to people who have sleep paralysis.
Just
I
like
said.
it talks about like vulnerable people a lot. People
So
that
we
are,
got
like,
introduced, I think, to 8 people in it. We got Chris, Jeff, Anna, Kate, Corrine, Steven, Connie, Forrest, and that's about it. I think,
Yeah. So the very first scene I had to write down because I thought it was a really fucking cool shot.
Mhm.
It was like 3 ladders in a room that was like backlit with a red light.
Mhm.
I thought it was really cool. It
So
reminded me.
I thought like a lot of the things the movie did well were like special effects. I thought were really
Yeah.
cool. I thought a lot of the camera work, the music, I thought was really, really good.
I mean, it was a documentary, but
Yeah.
it like documented people's experiences.
Well,
pretty
documentary slash they make scenes too to kind of play out what
Yeah,
people
like the
are talking
transition
about.
scenes?
Yeah. Where
Yeah,
they-
those are more just I don't know, like kind of just like people's memories of that event.
Well, yeah, they're
it
like-
wasn't really more like a movie to me. It was still a documentary.
I mean,
say.
movies are documentary. Like, documentary.
Yeah, it was-
is
I mean,
still-
we're getting off topic anyway.
It was a documentary film. It was pretty nice.
Mhm.
And I
It's fucking horrifying.
It was great, relatable.
and
Yeah,
then
relatable to people who have sleep paralysis. Which is something we can probably talk about, like, first and foremost.
I was thinking about doing that after we talked about like the story,
Yeah.
because man, this has a lot to talk about.
I mean, there's no overarching story. There's kind of just the stories that they keep going back to the same people for.
Yeah.
I thought, in my opinion, the one I liked the best that I guess, was the creepiest was probably Chris's. He's the first guy that you're introduced to in the movie. He's kind of the one who talks about, I think, the first person who brings up, like, shadow people and the Hat Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of ominous
Okay.
figures that most of the people seem to also kind of experience in sleep paralysis episodes, things like that.
See, I really liked Forrest's story because he was the one with the TV static like alien guys.
Yeah, the TV static looking.
And I thought like their costume design was pretty fucking cool. I mean, it looked basically just like fucking aliens, but shrouded in TV static.
I mean,
pretty
It
cool.
was cool how he said they were like shadows with shadows.
Yeah.
You know? Like they were darker than shadows themselves. Either that or like TV static. It's just creepy.
I think that's super relatable because, like, I even wrote a whole song about it, like Memories of Abduction, because I have little tiny incidents in my life where, you know, it feels like I've connected to some sort of source or like entered a different dimension or some shit.
Yeah. And then the first like actual scene in the movie is Chris as a little boy watching a fucking like newscast, and then the TV newscaster starts talking to him, and he's like, "Don't worry, Chris, everything is gonna be okay."
Like plane of day. Like
Yeah, like in the middle, like it would cut out from the actual like broadcast to him talking to Chris.
It also seemed like with Chris, the kind of point of his story was like he was the one that kind of just kept getting worse for throughout his life. To where
Yeah.
the episodes kind of became, even to the point where he's talking about how like he would start experiencing pain and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Chris's was probably the best.
Oh.
It was really good.
I mean, we could get into that later when it happens. I have it written down.
I want to watch this movie like a few more times. That was a trip.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But I also wrote down that there's this like really weird slow-mo of Chris as a kid like fucking pushing his arm down, but it was like choppy as fuck. It looked like straight out of like a 90s TV show.
Pushing whose arm down?
It was just him. He was just putting his arm down.
Oh.
But it was like super choppy, so it was like
Lots of crazy visuals.
And then we get introduced to Jeff.
Jeff R.
Yeah, Jeff R. And he's sitting on the stairs very ominously.
Oh yeah, so
He
Jeff was the guy
cool.
who was like wearing the soul patch.
Yeah.
His
Like the
story
weird
was
fucking
nuts.
like beanie with a
So
Bill.
Jeff, I also thought was interesting because he kind of, in my experience, like I think I was the first one out of all of us to kind of watch the movie because I originally watched
Yeah.
it back in 2015 when I was like 17 years old.
Okay.
The thing I thought with Jeff was interesting is he kind of talks about he experienced sleep paralysis because people told him about it. He said he experienced it because a friend told him about it, and then about a week later is when he kind of started having it happen to him. I don't think that's kind of the same with everybody. Like, originally when I watched this movie, I thought it was super interesting, but I think I've only ever had like one bout of sleep paralysis that I can kind of point to. Might have happened more times. I don't really remember a whole lot of my dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I wouldn't necessarily say all of my sleep shit has been like this. I can't pinpoint it to that, but I've had like, you know, like all kinds of sleep like problems for most of my life. Like I remember when I was a kid, I had night terrors for until I was like 13. So I don't know. The last time I actually had an experience, it was like I remember like the tickling. That was like really fucking relatable, and I hope it doesn't infect Liz like they said it was like
we'll get to that.
sleep transmitted disease. Like fuck.
We'll get back to that.
We'll get back to
I
that.
think we can also kind of talk about like the
Absolutely.
reoccurring things that people seem to keep talking about. Like
The
one
Hat
is the
Man.
shadow people, and then the Hat Man.
Yeah.
Seems to be like a reoccurring.
I mean, definitely, I've met the shadow people many a time.
Why are they in the form of people, and why are they always evil?
Because I
Why-
think
why
it's
is
something
there
that
a
it's
character,
emulating
you
us
know?
because
Well-
it wants to be us.
So that makes
maybe.
me think too. Like one of the other people they interviewed, I think it was Kate. She was the one who was a teacher.
Yeah, and the
I
blue
believe.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she kind of talks about, I think, towards the end of the movie, she kind of talks about how, which I liked, she kind of said it's kind of something that hangs on like the fringes of reality, or the fringes of reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
To where it's not something completely explainable, but in a way you kind of want it to be. Even
Yeah.
if you don't fully understand it.
It's just kind of like human nature to have explanations,
You
you know?
just want to give it a body, but it doesn't actually have a body. It's just unconscious
But also going back
being.
to Kate, she's only in this movie like fucking like 4 times. She's definitely the least seen character.
But why are there these shared characters that pop up, like the Hat Man? You know, like what is that?
I don't know.
He's
Like-
like the cult leader of
Well,
it all.
Yeah,
like they
so
were
what he's
saying
kind of
earlier.
described as, I think, by 2 people separately in the movie is kind of like the leader of like the shadow people, right?
Yeah. And like they were saying earlier, the only 2 or I think there was only like 2 people who mentioned the Hat Man. But they also mentioned watching Nightmare on Elm Street as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hat Man could be represented as just a visual of Freddy Krueger because, you know,
And I think
You're
if
one
you
of the
go
people
back,
who
Yeah.
shared that.
I think if you go back to the scene with Chris too, where he starts talking about how he has like one of his wife's friends also sleeping at his house, and then he kind of talks about how when he goes into the sleep paralysis that night, he sees like a tall figure that he describes as if the room is 8 feet tall.
Oh,
then
yeah.
that figure is taller, and he's kind of looming over him at that point, and then he describes him as like having red eyes, and he is kind of like leaning over him, telling him he's gonna die. Right.
Yeah.
And then he says that his girlfriend at the time, who was the one who told him about sleep paralysis, also kind of starts talking about how she saw a cat sitting on top of her that had red eyes that was talking to him in a language she couldn't understand.
Yeah,
I think
that
the
was
thing
tight.
with both of those is like, if you think of it like they have red eyes. I think it's kind of a human primal fear to be scared of like glowing red eyes, right? Like if a lot of predators, spiders, things like that, if you point a light at them in the middle of the night when it's dark, their eyes have like a glare, like a red to them.
Yeah.
You know, I think that kind of might have something to do with it. I also think it's really like unexplainable at the same time, right? It's like even if there is a scientific explanation, how can you describe that to somebody who has something that they don't even think is based in reality?
What if
You
she
know.
was like safer in a way, so she was seeing the same thing as him, but in a more like benign way, but she still knew it, like something was there, trying to talk to him, but she couldn't understand it. When it was clearly in his face saying, "You're gonna die."
I mean, there's a lot of times where I've had sleep paralysis to where, you know, when the fucking demon is trying to talk to you, it kind of just goes. You can't really understand it, man, but something it's saying makes sense.
And you've talked about static before too.
Yeah, like, especially the Hat Man. Like, it's kind of funny because I was mentioning the Hat Man before the Hat Man scene like came on, and I was like, oh shit, it's the Hat Man.
Yeah, that was intense.
That was
'cause
cool.
Kind of tied things together a little bit.
It's also like sleep paralysis itself is like something I guess that's been known about for a while. Like there's that famous painting. I can't remember the name of the artist right now, but he's the one who painted like the picture of the guy laying down with the demon sitting on his stomach.
Oh,
that they
yeah.
kind of showed in there. I remember seeing that when I was in high school because my art teacher showed our class it.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of the artist, but so it's like definitely something that's been around for a long time.
All right. Well, the next thing that happens in the movie is that we meet Anna, and she tells us about how her sleep paralysis feels like a bunch of bees buzzing around her, and how like she would hear like tapping on her window.
I think they all kind of said that at one point, like they experienced like a vibration that
Or
gets
electric.
Yeah, it's like an
more
electrical
violent.
shock.
Or a
Yeah.
washing machine.
Some
And they all
kinda,
describe it like obviously it's called sleep paralysis because they describe it as like feeling awake but not being able to move.
It's a kind of frequency, though. Everybody kind of agrees on that.
Yeah, like I think one of the women in there described it as like every inch and centimeter is like a struggle.
Yeah,
Right?
And then
That was messed up.
that's crazy.
Anna was also the first one to mention about how like she would feel a presence and how it was like trying to steal her soul from her body. Yeah, she was the first one to mention the people.
Yeah.
But she didn't really mention like them in like shadow people form.
Which one was she again?
So let's look here. I
Was she
think
the one who talked about her mom?
She was like the goth girl.
so. We got first introduced to Chris, and then we get introduced to Jeff, and then Anna, which is the one we're on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was the goth one, I believe.
Or yeah, goth-looking one.
Yeah.
She's the one. I think so. Like, what I also thought was interesting about this movie is like a lot of the people kind of seem to have their own explanations for it.
Yeah.
A lot of them seem to not really know what it is and kind of just like think of it as like, oh, I don't really know how to describe it. Some of them seem to think of it as more like a religious thing. I think Anna was one of those, and then there was another. I think it was Connie, who was the woman who said that when she became Christian, it kind of stopped happening.
I think that's because she kind of felt like she may have repented or whatever, but I think that's because a lot of these characters, their triggers come from guilt and stress and like
There was
independent bullshit that's just going on in their lives, right?
it was Steven, I think, who was, which we haven't met yet in the story, but he was the one who was saying that no matter how much like he changed his life, it didn't really change up how much sleep paralysis he got.
Yeah, and what about when they were babies?
Yeah, that was Chris and
I think
Jeff, I believe.
Jeff also kind of talked about how he tried to live like a healthier lifestyle.
Maybe
like,
maybe it was Jeff, not Steven.
where he was like working out, eating healthy, and it didn't really change anything.
And it adapts.
But I also do remember Chris talking about, because I think Chris is one of the people they go to mostly
Yeah.
back and forth. He's the first person you're introduced to. He also kind of talks about how like he eventually tried to like cure it by putting a TV and leaving it on when he would go to sleep, and eventually he had to get more and more.
He had, like,
keys.
fucking, like, 10 of them.
And
I
it just
totally
mutated.
align with that because I have TV static every night, but it hasn't been working lately. I fucking actually snapped at the cats, and I felt so guilty about it, but I was putting on my headphones one night. I had my headphones on, and I had TV static in my headphones because that's how I sleep all the time. And my headphones were knocked off in the morning, and I never get enough sleep, dude.
Also,
Always interrupted.
Also, Anna mentioned that she would feel like the demon was like ripping her baby out of her when she was pregnant, and how she was like trying to force it and put it back in, or keep it in, I guess.
Like she would astral project or whatever with her baby too. That's what I thought.
Well, I think that went back to Chris talking about how he hears people talking about things like astral projection and how he wishes he could describe sleep paralysis and have it feel cool like that, but to him it's not. Because again, Chris kind of talked about how it always kind of got worse for him, and it's still getting worse for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until it kind of crescendos with Chris, at least, because I feel like if we're taking it one person at a time, kind of like gets to the point with Chris towards the end of the movie where he kind of talks about one. I think it was kind of goofy for all of us. It was kind of funny. He talks about being in like a world that was, I guess, like he said angular, I think is how he described it, with steps not really leading anywhere and things like that.
Oh yeah, and then,
And then
he
he
meets the
sees
fucking
a
alpha
child.
Chad.
Yeah, and then he sees a childhood friend who he's like bringing a guy with him who's like a very, very big guy he describes with crazy red hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the guy I have
That's
written
just
down as
a
Alpha
little bit
Chad.
of childhood trauma mixed into some weird shit.
And then I forgot what he says. He says, but then he says that was like the worst sleep paralysis he had at the time.
Yeah, he says, "You know who I am,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then he was like, "No, I don't." And then he fell into like the bad sleep paralysis, and that's where the big tall demon was. He was like, "You know who I am. I know you, and you know me."
Yeah.
It's almost like just a really weird dream mixed with some horrible paralysis shit.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually kind of cool when that like scientist, the physicist dude, I can't remember.
So there's no physicist guy on the show. They talk about forgot his name. His last name's like Kaku something. He's a famous physicist.
I have him written down. Let me find him real quick.
I know about him though.
Yeah, and he was talking about how it's just windows to different realities. You can kind of
Well, he
see
describes
into
'cause,
the
like,
other.
he describes as him basically talking about like scientific theory that like there is infinite dimensions and there can be a dimension of I guess never-ending rooms or something like that, or however you described it.
And each room is its own galaxy.
Yeah.
And people
something
from
like
the
that.
next room can.
Guess I don't have him written down.
You can kind of interact with the other rooms eventually, and like I did try astrally projecting a lot through like high school, and it was pretty cool back then, but it has affected me, especially through drug use. You know, like I think my dreams are like few and far between, but when I do dream, they're like nightmares.
Well, we should like all each talk about
Fucked
our
up.
dreams and shit after.
And then
Save
Okay.
that kind of for later.
That's fair, yeah.
the next scene is we meet Kate, who saw dark figures in her room, and then when she saw them, her first like reaction was like, "Oh, somebody broke into my house." And
That's
then,
how real it was.
yeah, it was kind of like a really short scene with Kate. I feel like nothing much really got
So
described there.
Kate was the teacher, right?
Yeah, she was the one in the blue shirt
Okay.
who was in the movie for like 4 scenes.
Okay.
But yeah, she's like, yeah, she's kind of there, but you know, not really. But there was a cool scene.
I do like what kind of she described it as, you know. I think I just talked about that before. She talked about, but yeah.
It was a cool scene with the like shadow people. I thought because this was the first time that we were seeing like multiple of them. I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah. Then we meet Corinne, however you say her name. And then her thing was she saw an orange nightlight that kept expanding until it was like a red glow.
Oh yeah, she says
In the
she's
room?
seen that since she was like a child. That it
Yeah.
was a red, like a nightlight that was like a red cast kind of color.
And then
That
she
seemed
would,
to like light up the room.
I have it written down. I don't know who this is. Hold on, let me look.
I have all the names.
I think this was Forrest, who got introduced now. I just kind of wrote it as he.
So after Corrine, she's also the one that I think,
Corrine was Steven.
Yeah, it was Steven.
Yeah.
He was the first one who talks about seeing the Hat Man.
Yes.
Yeah, when we're first introduced. So like at the first part of the movie, I guess we should say like they kind of go through introducing all the people pretty quick.
Yeah.
They all
It
kind
was
of talk
a
about like,
giant
a short
info dump.
experience, and then it kind of keeps going back to them throughout the movie.
Keeps jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
A giant info dump. To the point where I was like, oh my god, are we just going to keep
Yeah.
meeting new people?
It definitely felt like it was paced a little fast at first, but I do think it did a really good job.
Yeah, it did slow down and became like more like, or I guess less like ADHD fueled.
Yeah, honestly, like a note I wrote at the very first was like there were too many subjects, too many references to pop culture with no real plot, but they kind of like figured that out. Like they had their own like development with it. They kept revisiting people, which was cool.
I thought this whole movie was just perfect.
I did think it was a really good movie.
Yeah,
watching it all the way back in 2015,
Pretty good.
I thought it was really good. Still
It
is
is
really
good. I mean, like the tickling, the character jumping,
the tickling.
vulnerable mother and stressed out little kid, and the many strokes and shit. Like,
So I guess that's something if people are confused. The tickling he's talking about is with Forrest. When they get to him, he describes when he was a child, like we already said that he sees like the figures as like alien looking, and their skin is like TV static textured.
Yeah.
And he says they would
That's
make him
wild.
feel like he was vibrating and make him feel like they were tickling him when he was in his crib.
Like, just for fun.
Yeah, as a toddler. Which is kind of creepy. I think Forrest was also kind of like
And it was his
funny-ish,
first memory.
you know. Yeah.
it's crazy shit because I don't know. We can get to what I'm going to talk about later, but let's keep going with this.
Then Chris comes back. And he's talking about how his bed collapsed on a box of Beanie Babies and how it started like spinning. And how he described like
Well,
the
yeah, he
darkness
says-
around him was alive and moving.
Yeah, so he describes it as like his bed when he was a child is like his bed broke because of Beanie Babies and he had it like propped up. Right?
Oh,
It was
okay,
like
yeah.
angled towards the doorway and he could see like directly in front of him was the doorway. And
Yeah,
it made
and-
his like sleep paralysis worse.
Then the fucking Hatman walks in. And is looking like a fucking alpha. Just comes with his minions and just sits there and stares at him.
Yeah, so from what we gather, the Hat Man is like the Chad, you know,
Yeah.
and the Shadow People seem to be the Betas.
Yeah, he's definitely like top tier shadow people.
Yeah.
Because he gets the hat.
Yeah. He's obviously the boss if he's wearing the hat, you know?
He's like Kung Lao and Noob Saibot combined.
Okay.
I guess that's a good description.
Yeah.
Um,
So, give him less power. He's not as cool now.
I got
Because
the feeling like
you can kill him in Mortal Kombat.
I got a feeling like he seems kind of silly. Like, I'm not scared of Hat Man. Like,
oh,
but
man.
at the same time, they describe him as like the worst. So
It's not fun to be molested in your sleep by a shadow.
Then
I bet.
It's fucking terrifying.
then we get introduced to Connie. And she's
Yeah.
telling us about how her sleep paralysis made her broken forever. And she's also the first one to describe like the
Yeah, so
shadow people as evil like presences.
I thought she was interesting too, is because when they first introduce her, she talks about her first bout of sleep paralysis coming when she was 5, and then she didn't get it again until she was 15,
Yeah.
and then it started happening more frequently when she was an adult.
So weird.
Yeah, and then she also compared because she was the one that like got touched by the shadow person, and
she's
she
the
was
first
saying-
one who I think said she described it as like feeling like an evil presence.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, and then she said it felt like death and felt like she was being watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was she would say like if she knew what death's touch felt like, it would be that. It's the shadow person.
It's because she slept with her back to the open door.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she also fucking slept in a room with the door open and slept with her back to it.
I feel like there's like a
I should
lot of
say, like-
tropes and like legends to be talked about, like the Sandman and shit like that, you know. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of tropes I've noticed from Nightmare on Elm Street that come back.
I think.
And a lot of scenes that are recreated, which we'll talk about later when we get to them.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is true. I'm just willing to say I think sleep paralysis maybe a little bit has something to do with like night terrors or people who are more, I guess, able to have like, they more or less have like sleep problems and bad dreams more often than other people. Because I think it kind of ties into like what he was saying, like tropes from Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think that kind of plays into what they're scared of when they're experiencing it, you know?
yeah.
I think that's why figures like shadow people, I think, kind of associated with like ghosts or spirits, things that people are typically scared of, especially when you're like a child. And also like the Hat Man, like Freddy Krueger, you know, kind of looking thing.
This is some kind of monster.
Because what they do describe towards the end of the movie is too is like how often and how much throughout history this is experienced by people like all over the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the demons and the things they see kind of change from culture to culture, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
why I think that sort of plays in.
It's like a sort of indoctrination, you know. You just scare your kids straight so they think a sort of way, and then they just fucking grow
I don't think
up
it's
with mental
indoctrination.
health problems.
I think it's more pop culture that influences what they're scared of. you
yeah,
know?
maybe, possibly.
That's why I'm saying I think it's changed, like the demon or whatever they're seeing is kind of changed from culture to culture, right?
Definitely.
Same with like developing a language. Like there's different languages.
Exactly. Because I talk about that painting. I can't remember the name of the artist. I should look that up. Just like
Yeah, just look it up so you can plug it.
Well, he's like long dead by now.
I'm sure he would appreciate that.
Maybe his fucking evil
Maybe if I
spirit.
see him like a sleep paralysis episode.
It would be cool to know what that painting's called.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next person we get introduced to is Forrest, who, he starts off pretty cool, but ends as like kind of a dick.
Yeah, why did you guys think he was a dick?
It's
Because
just
all the shit he was saying about his girlfriend,
we'll
he's
get
like,
to that.
man, she's crazy,
It
she's
was, like,
crazy.
silly, though.
we'll
But
get
no,
to
he
that.
was just
I
being
don't-
such a fucking, like...
I don't think he was describing her as crazy. He said he described her as like crazy in the sense that he thought they were both like on the fringes of sanity at the time. That's how he described it.
Well, that as well, but he was also being, like... I don't know, he was
I don't think it was that
degrading
bad.
her. Like,
I don't think he
man,
was
my
degrading her.
girlfriend's, like...
I don't think it was.
She's
crazy.
not really a hippie, but she's kind of like a wood spirit nymph.
That's even.
That's
Yeah,
what
that when he said that, I'm like, bro, fucking shut up. Just
The way
'cause
he-
she's into crystals and shit, that's cool. Like, leave her alone.
I feel like it was more on the way that he was like talking about hippies. He kind of like down
I don't
talked
think
it.
he like hated her.
the way
or
he was
like,
talking about
degrading her.
women too, I wanted to punch him in the
I think
face.
he was saying that he doesn't see her in a typical crazy hippie way that people see crazy hippies.
Could definitely be what it is, but we'll get to it. That doesn't
Anyways,
happen for
I wanted
like
to
another
punch
like
that
an
I
hour.
do feel like something to note with Forrest is kind of like the way he described his home life being growing up when he first started happening. Because I think he had like probably like the best, I guess, horror themed like child upbringing to be scared of things. As he describes growing up in like an old farmhouse. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously
Vermont.
scary as it
Silence.
is.
Yeah.
And then he was the one that his sleep paralysis like demons were the TV static aliens,
Yeah. We talked
Yeah.
about those.
and he described them as anthropomorphic beings with two inky eyes and a big inky smile.
I liked that guy's like attitude about everything. He was just kind of introspective and like.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
he definitely like
it was like amusing, you know. He like tried to draw him. And...
He does also say, which I thought was weird, is like the first time, like he's talking about his first memory being about seeing like these TV static like beings, alien-looking things tickling him. He says he remembers his parents going into his room, and when he woke up, he just kept saying the word Zines.
Zines.
Yeah, what the
Zines.
fuck?
Zines.
What is
Zines.
Well, the
What?
kid definitely like hadn't developed his fucking words yet. And
I
when
think you
I
have
was a
some-
kid, I was tongue tied until I was like 3 or 4. So I didn't know how to say most words properly. When I wanted to say airplane, I would say airfane.
I
Okay,
would
but
say
you didn't-
fire fuck.
You didn't wake up saying one word repeatedly.
No. But
That-
what I'm saying is this kid might have tried to say signs or something because he's like, man, that's a fucking alien. Signs.
I think he,
Like,
but
the
depending, I
fucking
think,
movie signs.
but
like
I think he's a
aliens.
little too old for
Yeah,
that.
he seems to be like late 30s, early 40s in the movies. When he was a little kid, I think I was before Signs came out.
That movie
Probably
came out in what,
not,
like
though, 'cause
early 2000s?
that dude was definitely older than us, and Signs was out when we were kids.
But I mean, he
But
was
that
like
would
a
that would
fucking
make
toddler.
his childhood before Signs.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Oh shit, you're
yeah, because he was in a baby crib when this happened.
Fuck, dude, I don't know.
That kid woke up saying that word for no reason.
Yeah, and
He just
also
had all the signs.
He also says he doesn't remember saying the word Zines. He remembers his parents telling him that that's what he just kept saying was Zines.
Maybe his parents are aliens.
You just find out it's his parents fucking with him the whole time.
Yeah.
Just imagine.
So weird.
And then the next chapter is called "It's a Thing," and nothing really goes on much in this one. It's just more the interviewers ask them like, "Hey, what did you do after realizing you had sleep paralysis?" And then I know Connie went into like a
She more went to like a religious kind of like kind of trying to tie it in with religion and like demons, things like that. I think they all kind of looked at it differently, which is what I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of already said that, but yeah, some of them kind of deal with it more as being like a spiritual kind of thing. Some of them, I think like Kate, I liked her take on it because, like I said, she kind of looked at it as like there's probably a scientific reason for it.
Yeah,
but
like
it
a
also kind
logical
of hangs
approach.
on the fringes of reality, and you can't really describe it, right?
yeah.
That was a good part. I thought she was one of the best like characters in that sense.
And then the next chapter happens, which is Sometimes They Come Back. And it starts off with Connie drawing 4 floor plans describing more of what happened when she was with her roommate and sleeping with her back towards the door, and then she saw like these black blobs trying to like eat her roommate or something. I thought that was really cool. Like, they kind of looked like flying nimbuses, but
I thought-
black.
Yeah, Connie was interesting too, because for some of them it seemed like it was something that was like very consistent every night ever since they were a child. With Connie, like I said she experienced it first time when she was 5 and then didn't get it again until she was 15.
Yeah.
And then it happened more frequently when she was like an adult.
Yeah.
Whereas like I think first guy, I'm spacing on his name right now.
Chris.
Yeah, Chris. He describes it as something that was like constant. Every single night.
I think it's
Same
just
with,
circumstantial because
yeah.
all life is kind of just like that. It's just different for everybody.
And then Forrest comes on and describes how like his shadow people started being like verbally abusive towards him. I can't remember exactly what they said because I didn't write it down, but I know
Chris?
that they were saying some mean stuff to Forrest.
Oh, Forrest, yeah.
And then Chris comes on and he describes how he had like a sleep paralysis episode where he stopped breathing, which I thought was kind of cool. Like he had to concentrate on getting his breathing back.
He does sort of say towards the end of the movie that he feels like sleep paralysis is ultimately going to be what kills him at some point.
Yeah.
He said that
does-
he hopes that is what happens.
And I guess if we're talking about like Chris too, something we kind of left out with him is like they kind of finish off the movie with him, which is where they describe a scene which we all kind of laughed at, but he says he describes seeing like a rollerblader He's like, has like a,
yeah, dude,
like
he's
a
doing
very
fucking sick
90s
tricks.
style rollerblader. He wasn't doing tricks. I don't
Nah,
know.
man, he was
He
doing
was
sick
not
ass
doing
tricks.
tricks.
It was a full-grown adult.
You guys just weren't watching.
He wasn't doing tricks. He started skating right towards.
He was
He
like
just
this,
started
and
skating
then fucking
towards
jumped
him.
like this and
He didn't-
landed
he
and
didn't
pulled out a
jump
fucking gun
sideways.
and shot him.
Maybe he did.
He did.
Okay, oh, wait. This
He
is what
totally
said.
just fucking like woo,
He didn't
and then
jump
shot him.
sideways like that, though, dude.
He did
You're-
not.
No,
do that.
he totally jumped up
It
and
was like
tucked
a
his
Matrix.
legs,
Okay.
and then he pulled out like a gun or something and shot him.
Okay, well,
Okay, but he describes the last one he said in the movie as he hears like two people knocking at his door. When he answers it, it's two homeless people
Yeah.
that are like trying to come into his house, and he says he sees in the back of them that rollerblader coming towards him, and as he's like getting closer towards
He's like,
him,
oh, he's gonna come in and play.
yeah, he says he thinks he's gonna come in and play, and then he pulls out a gun and shoots him. And then he says he felt like he went into this state,
like a coma.
yeah, like a coma, or what he described as he didn't know if it was a coma or death. He was just kind of hanging in like a nothingness, right?
Yeah.
And he says that's what he describes as it feeling like death, and like he kept trying to pull out of it, but he couldn't.
Just a perpetual state of nothingness.
Yeah.
Fuck. Forgot what he said to the homeless people. He said something funny. He was like, I don't have enough room for 2 more homeless people in my house, or something like that. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh no, he said we're all booked. No, he didn't say we're all booked up.
We're at full homeless capacity.
Full,
Yeah.
full capacity here, man.
We're at full capacity for homeless people here, man. That's what he said. I thought it was kind of funny.
That was pretty good.
We're gonna have to watch the rollerblading scene again though, because this
Yeah.
man's just getting all the facts wrong.
No, man, he totally fucking did something like that.
He did not.
So-
And then he pulls out a gun and shoots him.
He did do that. We can agree on that, but he didn't do any tricks.
Yeah. I don't know where you're going.
That scene was wild, though. That was pretty cool.
Was pretty wild.
I think you guys just weren't watching.
I think out of all of them, though, Chris seems to have like the most intense experiences with sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
It looks like. Well, I guess we can talk about, and I think it was Anna, who kind of talks about sort of the ghost. Like, I don't know if I should say this if we're posting it online, but like R-wording her for the most part. Like she felt like it was like crawling up on her bed and gets on top of her.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
demon definitely does like sexually assault. You know, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not a pleasant scene. But
You don't
Forrest,
see it. You just see the blanket kind of like hovering
Yeah.
and shit. But
I thought it was creepy how
That's
it was
something I think we
crawling
should-
up her bed in the first place. But then that
That's something
shit
I also
happened.
think we should clarify. It's not just a documentary in the sense that they're just like interviewing people. They also like play out their scenes like as if it's a movie of what they're describing from their memories.
yeah,
That's what kind of sets like the tone of the movie and kind of what makes it creepy.
are these also like paid
Yeah.
actors, or are they?
Oh,
like,
I'm
are
sure
these
they're
real
paid
accounts?
actors.
Because like, I feel like they're actors.
That should have been
in the
something we
scenes,
looked
they
up.
were actors who like played out in the scenes. I think the people they interviewed were like real.
Okay,
Well,
fair enough.
I
Yeah.
thought the Josh guy was the same person when he described him like picking up the phone and like going in the living room. I thought that was
Because
him.
they seemed like
Jeff,
normal
yeah.
people
Jeff.
that were just really bad actors. Can we agree on that?
I don't know.
I think a lot of.
I mean,
them
there
just seemed
wasn't
like
really
normal
much-
People. Like I don't.
Because it was a documentary. Like they were just being like
I don't think there was really much
documented.
acting.
I think you guys are
going
kind
on.
of
Yeah, they weren't
thinking
really
that
acting.
The people they interviewed were also the people acting in the scenes. I don't think that was the case. I think it was
Okay.
just actors they
No,
had that looked like those people.
It
so they
definitely
could-
wasn't, because there was the
Yeah.
scene where Chris was like floating in the void, and it was some dude with a
Oh
mullet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And also the dude they have played
Fair.
Jeff did not really look like Jeff. He just kind of had a soul patch,
Yeah.
just like the same. Like I said, I think they kind of made him look like him to like, play out the scene.
it was
Yeah.
pretty. I couldn't tell.
And then Forrest comes back on, and he was describing how like the voices and the images that he would get during his sleep paralysis changed depending on where he was.
Oh yeah, I thought that was interesting. He
Yeah.
said it changed from place to place. There also seems to be a reoccurring theme, at least from American experiences from people who have sleep paralysis, and there seems to be recurring things. There's like the Hat Man, shadow people. Some people describe an old hag. I think was what was described. Chris also, when they kind of go back to him, points out how he watched Insidious, which is also a movie that we're probably going to watch at some point in review.
Yeah, which would just
But
like
he says he thinks Insidious takes a lot of inspiration from like real accounts of sleep paralysis.
Oh, I
People
bet,
and
dude.
things
Like,
that.
because he was describing about how I forgot what his character's name is in the movie, but the dad, how like when he went to the other place, his head would like shake and would be looking like he had a seizure.
Yeah.
And then Chris would think that, oh, maybe I'm having seizures.
I don't think they describe that place as anything in Insidious, so we'll just call it the Upside Down, because that's Stranger Things.
No, they definitely do have a name for it. Just can't remember what it's called.
That's a good name for it, though.
The Inside Out.
Oh my god.
The Shadow Realm.
Pretty much.
They just fucking twist you inside out.
I mean, if
Put
you've seen
your-
Insidious, you probably know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Put your organs out.
It's when they would,
The astral
on the hook.
realm.
yeah, it's something like that, because they would only get to it because
The
of,
further.
like, astral projection.
further,
yeah,
yeah.
that's what it's called.
That's
Okay.
what the old woman in the show, Elise, describes it as. Yeah, the further. That's a separate movie, though.
Yeah.
Such
All
a-
right,
Getting
and
off
then,
topic,
Jeff comes on, and then he talks about how, like, he would set alarms and stuff to wake him up so that he didn't have to stay in his sleep paralysis for too long. And that it would make it easier to, like, actually go to bed. And then he talks about, like, his cool experience where he got, like, a phone call that he couldn't understand until he walked out into the living room.
Yeah, that's Jeff. Yeah.
Jeff, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the person on the phone call, like, once it clears up, he's like, "Let me in."
Oh yeah, he describes
That's a
getting a
pretty
phone
cheesy
call
part,
from
I
an
liked
old
it.
man that he can't completely hear, and he just keeps saying like, "Oh, you're breaking up," until he gets out into his living room. And then he finally hears him clearly, and he's like, "I just wanted to tell you." And then he says that.
Yeah.
I was wondering if he would wake up, like for real.
Yeah.
And his phone would still be broken,
Yeah, that would have been kind of cool.
Like this, I
I like how he got zapped right back to his body, though. Like,
Yeah, he got
Once
zapped.
he asked for help,
Yeah, he prayed to God.
and someone was like, "Okay."
Yeah, and then he described it as somebody grabbed him and slammed him back into his body.
yeah.
And then only 2 minutes had gone by.
Yeah. And then that was the end of that chapter.
It's pretty
This
intense.
movie makes me not believe in what's real anymore.
Well,
For real.
I think it's hard, especially like imagine if you had sleep paralysis to the degree a lot of these people had it, right? Like it'd probably be hard, even if there is like Kate said, like a scientific explanation for it. It's hard to see that in the lens that like that can actually exist because you don't think about that existing in reality, right?
Yeah.
It seems like completely something like out of the realm of like anything that science can describe, things like that.
I mean, I get sleep paralysis fairly often, but I found out, like, stress is my main factor.
Yeah.
So when I'm not, like, as stressed, I don't have it as often. But if I'm, like, really stressed, I have it, like, every night. So I think, like, stress and definitely, like, eating habits, I'm sure, play a big factor in it. Because that also plays a big factor in stress.
It's like, how connected are you to your own grounding link?
Yeah.
Opposed to like flying off and being crazy and being susceptible or whatever.
don't be vulnerable. Just be grounded. Go on jogs. Eat healthy. Take care of your mental health.
Or music, just like Stranger Things, like how music pulls you out of it.
Run up that hill. And then
Shut up.
And then the next chapter is screen memories, which is the characters or the people they're interviewing. I don't know if they're actually characters or not. But they're talking about how, like, movies influenced their sleep paralysis. So, like, Corinne, she was talking about, like... Corinne, I don't know how you pronounce it. Corinne. She was talking about how she wanted to find answers through watching Nightmare on Elm Street over again because it kind of plays a big part in her sleep paralysis.
Yeah. Well, it's like
Which
I was saying,
cool.
I think like culturally, especially pop culture, maybe has a lot to do with like primal fears and what people are scared of growing up, especially,
I think
Yeah.
it you might just be more like, it just could be like the cultural thing, like growing up in a household. You know, that's very
Well,
primal fear.
I think like a lot of like how you live and grow up is kind of influenced by like pop culture and
yeah.
culture.
Oh, definitely.
And kind of things
Everybody
you've seen
has
on
a
TV
different
and-
take on that reality because
Yeah.
you're in your own little box.
I could
Or
also
a lot of people also have a shared reality because we also always watch like a lot of the same stuff growing up too, right?
Yeah.
Or, like, you know,
I could also say that like
that's why I think so many of their experience seems to be the same with like the Hat Man and the Shadow People. You know,
Or
because as they were
aliens.
describing later, in the
or
movie,
aliens.
people throughout time in different cultures also had experience of seeing like scary things like demons and whatnot, but they were always kind of changing from culture to culture.
Yeah.
As Forrest described, like his experience was different depending on the place he was sleeping. You know.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What if it's just all your imagination? Because if you wake up and you can't move, what's the primal, like, worst thing that could happen is a monster being there and you can't run. And you,
Yeah.
like, that happens because you know you can't run. But then, like, when it gets to the point where you're having dreams about getting shot and you're dead now and you have to try 300 times to wake up, like, what is that? You know? What the fuck?
Yeah. I could also definitely say that, like, especially at, like, a super young age, watching horror movies plays a big part in your nightmares. Like, I would have nightmares of Chucky, have nightmares of Jason and Freddy.
You definitely shouldn't be exposed to that kind of stuff growing up, but you were.
I mean, I feel like it
We were.
depends, because...
It's not like everybody's going to get sleep paralysis because
Yeah.
of a horror movie. I mean, I do think sleep paralysis to a degree, and I'm not saying I'm an expert on it, I'm not saying I know this for sure, but I think to a degree it has a lot to just do with like sleeping conditions, and if you were a person who has like sleeping problems, it's probably more common
Oh,
with you.
I would
know?
definitely say that, too.
I'm just saying, like, me, myself, personally, like, watching The Mummy growing up, I
Like
remember the
Brendan
scene,
Fraser one?
like, yeah, the Brendan Fraser one, where the fucking beetles would crawl
the
underneath the
scarabs?
dude's
Yeah,
skin, the
dude.
scarabs. I'm like, oh, fuck,
Wasn't
man.
there, like,
And
a
I would
hand
scratch
on
my
the wall?
fucking arms until they would
Yeah.
bleed, and I would still be asleep.
Fuck.
Like,
Like,
I feel like it
so-
depends, because I don't think you should... I mean, I can't say this because I definitely was watching rated R movies at a young age, but I feel like, you know, that should be something that you get more exposed to when you turn, like, you know, like 13, 14.
Yeah, when you can handle it and your brain has kind of developed, but
I mean,
Yeah.
I do remember being like deathly scared of like super dark rooms, especially not sleeping when I was a kid, because I thought like ghosts were like the scariest thing.
I still am
On
scared
TV.
of that.
Yeah.
Not
There's
really,
only so many lights in here, man.
not really necessarily scared of dark rooms. I prefer dark rooms, but I'm more scared of like when it's a dark room and like my closet's ajar. I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm gonna see the girl from The Grudge in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
She's
what I'm
gonna
talking
fall
about.
down.
It's like the creepy spaces
What-
that are
what-
kind of shown in horror movies, like closets, hallways,
Yeah.
things like that. Like liminal spaces, I guess you could describe them as, that are like shrouded in darkness, because then it leaves like your imagination up to anything, right?
Yeah, because
Like,
then
holy fuck, like I'm gonna see a
Okay.
demon or some shit.
yeah, especially when you're younger too, when you don't necessarily have that like
That understanding.
yeah of
that,
if
like,
it's
not-
real or not,
yeah.
kind of.
I have a perfect one for culture. Fucking Halo Reach. I had a dream when I left Halo Reach on when it first barely came out. I was like 12 or 13 or whatever, and my closet was still ajar, and I remember seeing a jackal in my closet like perfectly, but I was also
Like the
asleep.
Jackal
13
from
Ghost.
No, like
Oh,
Jackal
from
from
Halo.
Halo. Like the ones with the shield and the
You know,
carbines.
they
My mind
impersonate
automatically went
like
to 13 Ghost, which we should also watch.
no, like
Never seen
a
it.
sniper
Oh, it's so
jackal from Halo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, like that.
But that's, like,
Because I was playing that as a kid, you know, and I fell asleep.
I also
And
feel like that's
Scary
like
as fuck, dude.
one of the least scary aliens in Halo. is
Yeah,
the
but to
Jackal.
see that in your closet as a kid,
I would be like,
as a
fuck,
fucking
dude, okay.
human kid, I'm not a Spartan. That's scary
A
as
lot of-
shit,
there
dude.
was
He's,
some
like, he's
shit
gonna
that
snipe
scared
me
you.
on, and I'm on legendary because all of this life is a boss battle.
Dude, but imagine seeing a goddamn hunter in your closet.
oh shit.
Just like a 12. How big are they? Like 12 feet?
Yeah, dude, my
Fucking,
my
like,
closet
600
would be
pounds.
destroyed.
We should get back to the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hands for cannons.
So the next scene is Chris talking about how
Hands for
Insidious influenced his sleep paralysis, which we kind of touched on. But I wanted to bring up. Chris says Insidious is only okay. And I was like, I don't think it's only okay. That's
I
kind
would
of.
disagree with him there. I think Insidious is like one of my favorite horror movies.
I think that's kind of like a.
Well, compared to what
Gatekeeper
that guy
move.
has been through, can you blame him? Like,
But like,
True.
you're just gonna be like, yeah, but Insidious is only okay.
he's like, okay.
He just had to put that out there, so he reminds me of like a
You probably
gatekeeper.
can't scare that guy. Like,
Yeah. I mean, if
That
anyone
guy's
watches
probably
this,
been to
you're
the
probably gonna
back
have some
rooms.
dude in the comments talking about
Just
how we're
saying.
all fucking for liking Insidious.
Oh, yeah. But dude,
Or how
that
we're all
Darth
stupid.
Maul
I'm
villain?
sorry, I should probably censor that out. But
Darth Maul demon.
Yeah.
Alright. The next one is Steven talking about natural born killers being a part of his sleep paralysis, which I thought was cool. There's not really much to go
Well,
on.
he talks about like a part for the opening to Natural Born Killers,
Yeah.
where like it's like they're showing like the names for like the actors and all that kind of shit, like the credits, the opening credits, and there's like a red background with like a black figure standing next to the credits.
it was
Yeah,
like a
and
one
that's-
flash image that
Yeah.
he has exactly seen before.
And
That's
it
what
just
he like
burnt it into his
associated the
mind.
shadow people with. Yeah.
And he thought that the directors were trying to talk to him,
Alright.
which why not?
So, the next chapter is Mechanisms of Avoidance. And this chapter is talking about what they did to change how often the sleep paralysis affected them, or happened, I guess is the right word to say. And then this is when, what was his name? Chris?
Yeah, Chris.
He filled, like, his room with, like
TVs.
10 TVs at one point.
And he says he would put them on mute just to hear like the TV buzz.
Yeah.
He said which would help him. He said it first started out with like one TV, and that kind of stopped working, so he would like do two, which kind of worked, and he'd get more and more and more until he described it as like he figured out like the paralysis itself was like adapting to whatever he was trying to use to avoid it.
And then he said how he removed them and then had like one of the strongest sleep paralysis he's ever had because it became so strong to get over the TVs that it just affected him really bad then. Not really much to talk about in that chapter. It kind of is what you expect, people Googling shit, trying to figure out. I know, what's her name? Corin, I think, the Asian lady. Connie.
Yeah.
She was talking about how, like, religion kind of made her...
Yeah, Christianity kind of helped her with
Yeah.
it.
But what if Jesus was just a safe word? Like, it's all your imagination.
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, that's right. She described it as like one night when her sleep paralysis was really bad, where she had this like. She described it as like a shadow figure that had red eyes and a dark red robe.
Yeah.
That she was wearing that came into her room, that was behind her back and like kind of leaned over her, and she just said that she like tried to like enunciate that in Jesus' name, leave this place or something like that.
In Jesus' name, get out.
Yeah, in Jesus' name, get out. She said that like that worked for her, which is why she found like religion as the thing to help her with it.
Yeah. That's actually the wrong chapter, but
Yeah.
hey, whatever. All
I
right.
think I don't know. She just found a way to escape it because any like safe word could be your safe word. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't just have to be Jesus.
Well, words have power too, right? I mean, they must.
I mean, like a collective power because Christianity has affected so many people through indoctrination.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gonna sit here and talk about like the negatives of like Christianity. We're just kind of talking about the movie. But I get what you're saying. But maybe for Connie, like it did help her. Like if she thinks Christianity is what helped her, then good for her.
Yeah.
If
If it did help her, then that's
Yeah.
what matters, I guess.
Yeah, that's solid. I'm just like, there's other words of power too.
I mean,
Yeah,
but not
that's
for
what
her.
worked for her.
Yeah.
That's what she used and what helped her.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
then-
I'm getting off topic.
The next chapter is Now It Hurts, and it's describing, or it's the people being interviewed describing how their demons hurt them. or sleep paralysis.
I think Chris is the only one, right, that describes it ever being a physical pain.
Also Corin, because she was the one who got
Claws.
like sexually abused.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it was kind of just Chris and Kareen.
Yeah.
And the rollerblader guy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
when the rollerblade guy pops up. Oh no, it's
He
not.
first describes it as like a claw.
Yeah,
right? Like
the
from
fucking bathtub scene from Nightmare on Elm Street. It was so cool.
like an
like-
arcade claw game where you like get the
Yeah.
stuff down or whatnot. He says he describes being in like a sleep paralysis episode where he sees it kind of come out of the black, like above his face, and then it goes down to like his crotch.
Yeah, just fucking
pretty much,
starts
and then
jabbing him in the
goes down
dick.
and starts stabbing him. And he
That
says
was
it,
something.
yeah.
That was something weird. He said it was like it was worse in the ditches. So I was like, I didn't know what that meant, but I guess like in his divots or whatever.
I think he was talking about his dick. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because in the scene, the claw like comes up and moves and just
Like,
starts
right
fucking
on
like
his crotch.
stabbing his dick.
Yeah.
Weird.
And then
I think the subtitles just got it wrong.
And then he also claimed that he's no longer an atheist because of this moment. Is that it kind of made him realize that, hey, maybe these are actually like demons.
It was like really real for him after that.
Oh, and then the forest scene, which I thought was kind of funny, is he woke up from a nightmare, and at the end of his bed was the old man. And he was like, "You came all over your mother!
You pervert!
You pervert! You masturbated
So wait,
on your mother!"
Was he talking about going into a sleep paralysis episode when that happened, or coming out of one?
I think he was coming out of a dream and woke up in a sleep paralysis.
Okay.
And saw
yeah.
old man.
Yeah, and
he
saw the
sees-
old man.
He says, yeah, describes it as like a frail old man who starts making him feel shameful for like coming
On his
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
And then he had to point out that he didn't even masturbate that night,
So I think
which I thought was
Pretty
also
sure
kinda
he
funny.
probably masturbated.
He
Yeah.
came all over his mom, dude.
Well, I
Dude,
think
that's
there's
fucked up.
there's definitely a theme with a lot of people with like their sleep paralysis episodes where it's like themes of like fear and shame. Kind of feels like very bad negative feelings, you know.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's like depression or shame or I think it was also Kareen or however you say her name that described seeing her grandmother after she died in her sleep paralysis episode. And it made her feel good, but she always felt kind of uncomfortable because she didn't know if it was her grandmother or something else. She described it.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this was also the one where Chris came back and saw the like 10-foot tall demon over him, and his girlfriend the demon was talking about how like, you know me, I know you.
No, he says, I know you don't know what I am, but I know you're going to die, and he just kind of keeps repeating that to him, or something.
Yeah, what
like
he
that.
started out with was the same thing that big red kid or like red-haired kid was saying.
Yeah.
And then he says like, you're going to die. And then Chris's wife woke up and
Well,
saw, or
she
maybe it
don't-
was his girlfriend.
She didn't wake up. She was also in a sleep paralysis episode, but he said that she woke up screaming because she said that she had a sleep paralysis episode where she saw, as that was happening to him, she saw like a cat with red eyes sitting on her chest.
Yeah.
That was like speaking to Chris in a language she couldn't understand. That's how she described it.
Yeah. And then let's skip to the last one because we're approaching an hour because we basically touched on everything from that except for that Connie is a YouTube vlogger.
It's true. She has a YouTube.
Yeah, she has a YouTube
I
channel.
actually think we should look up. I don't know. See the
It would
last
be
time
kind of
she-
cool to see that. And then the last one is Final Destination, which is
Not the movie.
yeah, no, not the movie.
They don't
Surprisingly,
all
the
die
chapter.
in horrific ways,
What
unfortunately.
if they all healed and like got over all their trauma and then they die on a roller coaster?
that would be kind of funny.
It's just a preview for the next Final Destination.
This is the one where Forrest might or may not degrade a hippie.
I guess from how Trevor described it,
I thought this closing was badass. I'm glad that he was the one that like told this story because that was awesome. There was like an angel.
Yeah, it's him and Chris who are in this
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah.
Chris
He seems
closed
like a
it
real
with
bluff one.
what we told you before about like the whole roller skater shooting him, and then he was in that. I think that's kind of how he ended his.
Yeah.
And then I think it really ends with Forrest talking about his, which
No, Chris is the one who ends it.
yeah.
I have it written down.
Okay, yeah.
But Forrest is out in like the woods with his hippie ex-girlfriend, or I guess girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
But then they gather like stone pebbles and make a stone ring, and
Yeah, they were
They end up-
totally awake, and they
Yeah.
made an intention of just receiving.
yeah, communicating with the like sleep paralysis demons.
Yeah.
And
So he says like don't like they go to a beach, right, or like a forest or something.
yeah, it's
in
a
the middle of-
forest.
Yeah, and then she's like closing her eye. Well, she has her hands over her eyes, and then he said that he sees a figure, like a blue figure, that he says he thought was like, it felt like it was like a good energy.
Yeah, it was like a
And
blue
then there's
TV
like
static
those
dude.
shadow static dudes behind him.
And then
Yeah,
his
well, he says like then his girlfriend says, "Don't worry about the demons behind you."
no, that's what the demon or the blue guy says.
Yeah, don't worry about the demons behind you.
Through her.
Yeah, through her.
Yeah,
Which is
and
Wait.
then
really
he
cool.
turns
Yeah.
around and sees the TV static like aliens that he saw when he was a kid.
Yeah.
What does it say? What did he do, though?
He said he thought about how, he said he had like a random thought of like how if you are scared of something, feeling fear gives it more power,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
And
And
that
so
thought alone
kinda
made
what
him
my-
feel more
That
comfortable.
was really cool.
That's what my book talks about that I'm reading right now, called The Power of Now. Like, total same shit, dude.
And then I believe that he kind of looked like a discount Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, the actor who played him
Yeah.
in that scene, yeah, sort of.
That's not what you said.
Well, I can't say it. It's gonna be mean.
So basically, the only hope that they give us is to like, don't be afraid.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Don't give them power.
Like as
Just-
above, so
yeah.
below.
Be yourself.
But I also wanted to talk about the beginning of Chris's scene when his girlfriend ends up hating him because of the whole sleep paralysis.
Oh yeah, like the
Bec-
next day.
Yeah, and then
Oh,
he
no.
describes it.
That wasn't Chris, that was Jeff. He said
Oh.
he gets a text from a friend he tells about it,
Yeah,
and she's
yeah.
texting him, I hate you.
Oh, okay,
Because the
so
same
it
thing
was
that
Jeff.
happened to you is now happening to me. Because Jeff's also the one who described it as like he only started experiencing it after his friend told him about it.
Yeah.
A week later is how he got it.
And then he made a funny joke about how
I mean,
it's
I hope-
a sleep transmitted disease
yeah.
Which I thought was kinda cool. and funny.
It's an STD.
I mean, I hope like we're not going to talk about this and then that happens to
Dude,
somebody.
honestly, my
like us talking
my-
about this movie, then they watch it and then they get sleep paralysis. But
Hey
My-
man,
my
it's a
stomach
weird
dropped
experience.
Because we all just watched that movie together. Now we're doing a podcast about it.
Oh, you're gonna have it.
This is the best time for all of us to like have this.
I mean, we all have sleep problems. I guess.
Let's just spread the fear.
And then the movie closes out with Chris basically saying how he thinks that sleep paralysis is going to be the reason he dies.
Yeah.
Well, it seems likely. Like. he
Yeah.
has-
Well, didn't they talk about a scene in the show? As like one of the people talked about a guy who talked about it, like it was like the 40s or something, who did actually die from it or something, right?
Yeah,
I
he
can't
did say
remember.
about a dude that died from it. And he was talking about mini strokes with the one burnout dude who said like a lot.
Well, no, he described it. He said he described it as like feeling like a stroke when he first started experiencing, because
Yeah.
he didn't know what it was. He didn't know if it was like a stroke or something like that.
But yeah, no, the person you were talking about,
yeah, I don't know who brought
definitely
up that guy.
killed over.
Well,
They showed like a picture of somebody who I think they were
It's like a
talking
headline
about,
on
had
the
like
news.
died from
Oh, mysterious deaths.
yeah.
Yeah.
all right. Well,
I mean,
that's the end of the movie.
we can
But-
talk about our own experiences now, I suppose, right?
Oh, I was gonna
Hopefully.
ask, who do you think the bad guy in this movie is?
The bad guy?
Yeah, who's the villain?
I don't think there's a perpetrator because I think it's just a documentary.
I don't think there is like a
But
I mean, but if you were gonna put someone as the villain,
the villain is fear.
Fear?
the villain
Fear.
I would say is the Hat Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I
the-
think
I would
the
say it's the
villain is,
shadow
The
people.
villain is fear that you create in your own mind.
But it's not necessarily fear,
Because that's what the Hat Man and these
because
guys
they're
are
not just
feeding off
experiencing
of.
fear.
I don't
They're
think
experiencing people coming to them.
I think the
That's why I
villain
think the
itself,
shadow
I
people
guess
are
if
the
we're
villains.
taking it in that sense, would just be sleep paralysis, right? Like,
I think
I
it'd
don't
be
think
fair.
just sleep paralysis is the villain. I think it's the shadow people.
What
Okay.
creeps me out
The people
is
who
that-
visit
Shadow
them.
people.
Okay,
definitely.
the
They
ominous
try to hurt them because sleep
figures
paralysis
that
doesn't
hurt
hurt
people
them.
and make them scared, I guess, would be the shadow people and the Hat Man or whatever else
Yeah,
they saw. whether
okay,
it's
those are
the
the
tall
villains.
figure that Chris sees, or like the hooded
We can agree
red
on
cloak
that, yeah.
thing that Connie sees. Like,
We could just put them
No.
as the shadow people, or we
Yeah.
could just name them the Hat Man, just because he's probably the one behind all of it.
I know who the bad guy is.
Who?
The parents who were like, should we put him in therapy? No.
oh yeah, should we?
They are
go
also
see a
bad people.
psychologist.
Yeah, that's what my parents did to me, and now look at me, dude. Whoa.
Whoa, having sleep paralysis. It's
No,
a full
I'm a
circle.
fucking 24-year-old rapper. Even worse.
But I guess since that's a movie, we should probably talk about like our own experiences with sleep paralysis now, right?
Where would you put the shadow people on a tier list?
On a tier. Okay, S tier.
S through F.
S
Wait.
tier, Hat Man. Okay,
Well, no, like all together.
all together.
Yeah.
It seems
We're
like-
just picking the Hat Man as the bad guy, I guess.
I say S. That's the highest one.
You think S?
Well,
Well,
what do
yeah,
they have
dude,
to
'cause it's
compete
like
against?
The scariest shit you could imagine.
Well, this is just.
They don't have anything.
So
to
you're putting them on a
compete
tier list
against.
of
Well-
like scary things, or like
No.
what's the tier list grading?
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be
my
the
guy.
villains of our
Put-
movies. But you can just put them on a tier list because this is the
I
first
see.
one.
I see. Okay. Because
So
I'm
you
like,
don't have
who
to
do we
compare
have
them to
compare
anything.
So
We
your
don't have-
favorite
okay.
villain, like
Yeah, it has to be a conglomerate like place though, because I'm gonna get a whiteboard and write them down.
Dude, let's just buy a whiteboard for this room. I'll get one right now. I'll get one on Amazon.
okay.
But like, where would you put them? Nothing to compare. Just
As far as what though?
as a villain.
But that's why I said
I
I put
like
the
it.
Hat Man
The
at S.
worst one.
The S.
I
S
put 'em at
tier,
S.
they're pretty ominous and malevolent.
I would say the really scary ones, so like the Hat Man and I guess the really tall, dark, red-eyed figure that Chris sees. I don't know what he called
And
that
then
one.
the static aliens.
Well, no, we're just taking them all as a conglomerate and putting them on there. So like all together.
It's like a chunk.
So the villains, the villain
So shadow people.
shadow people.
Shadow People S.
S.
Fucking
I don't know if I'd go with S because they didn't really ever kill anybody. They just,
Oh, okay,
But
fine.
we're
They're
not.
like a B tier because they're
the
kind of
most
scary.
Real bad guys, like monsters.
Well, we're
that
not
they're
taking
gonna-
this as just like real either.
I don't know if I
It's
really
more just
like
like
this.
as
It's just
villains.
kind of confusing because I don't really know what you
Yeah,
mean.
dude, your
like-
tier list kind of just.
Well, it's just because it's the first fucking people to rank. where do you put them?
We don't need to rank anything yet. I don't think. I don't know.
I want to rank them.
Like as far as like scary.
I think it'd be more interesting to just kind of talk about our own experience of sleep paralysis right now because we're already at like an
Definitely.
hour, right?
We're over an hour.
Okay, yeah, we should probably get to that because I don't want to do it like an hour and a half.
Okay. Well, I put them at C.
Okay.
Okay.
The closest I've ever gotten to sleep paralysis is like not even. I've like woken up while I'm like before I'm asleep. You know, before I'm all the way asleep, I'll wake up because something will wake me up, and I'll feel like I'm like shaking back down onto my bed and like into my body again, and it's like vibrating.
Huh.
Like I felt like the bed was shaking or something. Like I was hovering this high above the bed, and it just.
That's
And
weird.
sometimes the colors, as far as colors go, this could happen to me at night in the pitch darkness or in the daytime if I'm staring at the ceiling. But like green and purple orbs that like come from inside each other and spread out. Like really, really vivid green and purple is like a continuous thing for me. But I've never heard like tapping on my window or like I'll hear like little voices sometimes, but I've never been paralyzed.
I definitely have a few scary incidents. I know I have seen the Hat Man, and he is fucking scary. But he didn't really do anything. He just kind of stood there.
Was
So
it
talking
open
like
at you?
like in
Yeah.
detail, when's the last time like you saw the Hat Man?
Oh fuck, dude. like last year.
Like, what was your last like worst sleep paralysis?
My last sleep paralysis was a couple days ago. And what it was is I was just laying in my bed. I had my eyes closed and I couldn't open them. But I heard like a deep voice trying to talk to me. I couldn't understand what it was saying. But I knew that it wanted something. But I couldn't tell what it wanted because it just kind of sounded like gurgling. But like, as they said in the movie, it kind of feels like you can kind of feel that it's not really good.
It's like a negative energy.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, I should be scared of this thing. Like, because you know when you get in like those like fearful situations and you just have that like weight?
You kind of have that shock.
Yeah.
It goes into your body, makes you feel like a little stiff.
And it's kind of like, you know, you either have to fight it or you run kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you can't do either because you're stuck there. So it's kind of just panic attack.
I've never like witnessed or was aware of like the shock or electrocution or the frequency thing before any of it. I just witness what's happening as it happens.
What do you...
Like, I've never had any like shock or electrocution or anything.
There's not like a
where
process.
There's
So
no process
you don't
like
feel
that.
like the vibration that they're
I don't feel
describing.
any vibration like that. I'm just like, okay, this is my room, but now there's like this fucking shadow dude like over top of me, fucking touching me.
But do you fall asleep before that happens and you wake up in it?
No, it just felt like I was like kind of looking at the tapestry, kind of like looking at how the red light was like reflecting off the window
Trying to
on your
fall asleep.
posters and shit, and it's like
Okay, like, are you
I wasn't actually asleep, but then I fell asleep or something, but
Yeah, like you kind of fall into a dream after your
it's
sleep
like a
paralysis.
trance state, more like meditating, but I'm not like asleep, but then there's this shadow person.
But do you
and
feel
he's-
like you like don't have control of your body? Like, do you feel like you can't move when you're in this?
Yeah,
like, you
definitely.
were trying to go to sleep and then you fell.
I definitely couldn't move. I was like trying to fight it. I'm like, dude, get the fuck off of me, stop touching me.
Okay, well, sorry about that.
We had some technical issues. The recording stopped.
All right.
Trevor got
Trevor,
tickled.
go back to what you were saying.
Well, anyways, so the ghost demon shadow figure was hovering over me, just like looking at me, but had no face. Just more of like, I could see where his eyes should have been, and he was just like touching my wiener and like tickling me everywhere. It was really fucking uncomfortable.
So R. Kelly broke into your room.
No, it
Fucking
was
R.
not
Kelly.
R. Kelly. I
Oh, he got
promise.
trapped in the closet, dude. You should check your
I
closet.
didn't get roofied or date raped. He
Or
didn't try
peed
and
on?
pee on me or anything.
It seems
He
like-
just touched my wiener.
So are you
seems
talking
like-
about like the last time you had sleep paralysis, or this is like
This
the most
was
memorable?
recent, actually. This was like within a week
It's
or
like 2
two.
days
Was
ago.
this the
This
only
was
time
just
you
like
had
a
it?
couple days. Huh?
Was this the only time that you had it?
No, this was just the most recent
Okay.
time, and definitely a shadow person. But I've never seen the Hat Man.
Dude, the Hat Man's pretty fucking
It
spooky.
seems like all your dreams are very wiener based anyway.
Dude, yeah. So I had a serious manifestation of a poltergeist where I was really horny and I was I'm like humping the air like morning fresh,
God.
like a morning wood, dude. And
So
I
Trevor's
lean
shadow
over and I
people.
say some shit to Liz about how
No,
my
Trevor's trying to
fucking
tell it,
fuck
let
some
me tell
shadow
it.
people.
Let me tell it. So
Yeah.
we were both laying there and like early morning, I was like starting to wake up but still pretty much asleep. And it was just quiet and all of a sudden Trevor says, "It's like mangled fruit pie down there." And I said, I'm like,
It's like mangled fruit
and I
pie.
said, "What did you just say?"
It's like a mangled
He
fruit
said,
pie. No,
It's like
pie.
mangled fruit pie. And then he wakes
Mangled
up.
fruit pie.
He like actually wakes up and starts laughing because of what he's talking about.
Just for context to the people that are listening to this, Trevor and Liz are like in a relationship, just so everybody's aware. So that's how
I'm just saying,
Sure
like,
is.
what if, like, my dreams are real fucked up because, like, some ghost is trying to touch my wiener?
Dude,
It's so articulate and descriptive for him being asleep. Like,
It's like a mangled fruit pie.
I don't know why,
It's so gruesome.
but it kind of reminds. I don't know why, but it kind of reminds me of that scene from Scary Movie 2 where the fucking tree rolls Shorty into a blunt
Oh yeah.
and smokes him. I don't know why, but something about.
I don't know.
Ghost
how you got
trying to
that
touch your
from
pee-pee.
like a ghost touching Trevor's dick.
Well, it's because it's like a ghost trying to touch him. And that was the same thing with like that movie too. Is like, you know,
But was it?
Just like manipulating somebody.
yeah. It's like next thing you know, they're gonna be smoking your dick.
Oh, God.
Trevor's aren't really scary. They're more just he's horny.
No,
And
not
then
true. I'm also really scared
He's
too.
scared of the
So
He
he's
gets so
fearful.
scared that he
I'm
gets
just
hard.
horny and scared, okay?
He's just
Leave me
hard and
alone.
scared.
Horny and
I mean,
scared.
think about it this way. At least you'll never be
That's our
scared, because then
podcast.
the fucking sleep paralysis demons are probably just thinking like, "Fuck, this guy's weird."
No. Man,
They're like,
they're
"Oh,
like
shit,
the FBI.
Fucking stop
They
touching
That's
like
why
my
the Hat Man hasn't seen it. He's like, "I don't want to fucking go near that."
The FBI dude's
They're like,
like looking
"Should we
at your
touch
search
him?"
stuff, and he's just like, "Yeah, we don't want to mess with him. He's weird." No, just kidding.
Just let him do his thing in the corner.
So for me personally, I don't think I've ever had sleep paralysis to where it was like the point of like I was seeing things or hearing things. I think I got it like last week, but in like a milder way, to where I felt like I was in like a dream state that was really, really hard to come out of. And when I woke up, it definitely like made me scared because I felt like I wasn't coming out of it. Gave me a lot of anxiety. and
Oh
shit,
yeah,
but
dude. That's the worst.
That's about like all I can really remember with it. I don't really ever remember like an instance of actual sleep paralysis. I think.
I know I had one where I was watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I paused it so that I could take a nap. But then when I woke up in like my sleep paralysis state, I was face down, like in my pillow, and I could hear it going, like, and it was like the episode like I just watched. But I like heard it over again, and then when I like got out of it, I looked over and just like the Netflix icon is like doing its like weird thing, which I thought was kind of cool.
The Netflix icon actually is kind of ominous. You know, I can feel like you could see that in a sleep paralysis episode because it's like red and black,
Yeah.
glaring.
And it has a head.
Not
It's like
exactly.
it's
but
like
it
a
has
head.
dick.
Okay, Trevor's just horny.
What? I didn't even. What? Oh, it's like a head of a demon.
Oh,
I mean, I guess. Yeah, the Netflix icon's kind of spooky.
Floating
kinda-
floating
it's kinda
demon
ominous.
It
head.
That's
even
what I'm
sounds
saying.
weird. I remember the first time like I heard the noise of it when they made it have a noise.
oh, like the dun dun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always saw it as like a fucking like door slamming.
Isn't that the noise from one of the Netflix like exclusive shows they have on there?
Maybe.
I remember that's like the lore behind that, like that sound.
I
Forgot
don't know.
what it
That's like when it starts up and like loads
like
up your profile.
All
It's
right.
like the intro to one of the things.
Well,
yeah,
our,
we're probably already pretty far in this.
our podcast is approaching an hour in like 10 minutes.
I think we're still kind of working on a name right now. I think Let's
Yeah.
Get Scared is kind of where we're at. That could change, but I think at the moment it's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
Fair talk.
And then I have one more question for everyone. 1 to 10 Hatmans. What would you rank this movie?
2 Hatmans.
2 Hatmans?
No, like
6
6 Hatmans.
Yeah, 6
Yeah,
Hatmans
bro,
sounds
that's still
good.
kind of low.
I
Honestly?
say
I would actually say like
I would
7 Hatmans. This
I would
was a
give
pretty
this
good
movie.
movie.
An 8 Hatmans. I really
8
liked
Hatmans?
it.
I think so too. I was gonna say like 7.98.
In
Yeah.
my experience, it's very, very, very good horror movie.
Yeah, it's like
Or documentary, whatever you want to call it.
I mean,
still
it's-
really good.
it's a really good
That's-
one to watch.
That's
Like,
one of my favorites now.
if you are interested in sleep paralysis, I feel like this is the movie to kind of watch.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very interesting. Kind of goes over a topic that I think one thing that makes this movie kind of good is it takes a very real phenomenon. You know, it's not a typical horror movie where you kind of have to think like, oh wow, that'd be scary if that was real. Like this is a very real thing
Yeah.
that happens to people, and they kind of talk about their experience with it. You know.
Yeah, it's not really goofy at all. There's like, it's also not really scary. It's just very interesting.
I would say it's scary to some people, but yeah, it's.
I
Also,
guess it depends
I
on what
was-
you think scary is.
I was
Yeah.
pretty scared, like by some of the stuff they were talking about for sure.
That
say if,
pulsating orb thing that just like was a antimatter booger.
Oh, the blobs.
Yeah, that was pretty gross and cool.
But if you guys want, check out this movie. It's on. We watched it on Tubi.
It has
really
ads,
good.
by the way.
It's called The Nightmare, like we said 1,000 times.
The
It's
Nightmare.
a Rodney Ascher film. He looks like he's done a few other horror movies that we will probably check out in the future at some point.
Yeah,
I think we all thought it was pretty good, pretty interesting
Yeah,
movie. We encourage people to go check it out.
and I will also say, just a warning, there is a jump scare in the movie.
Yeah, there is.
Of 8 legs.
And also one of the,
The movie definitely
Beerus
does not
looking
play
dude.
out jump scares, though.
No.
Just, say that.
It's like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And they're not really scary jump scares, but, jump scares are bad for some people, so I'd like to give that warning.
Yeah. But if you guys want, we're probably going to be uploading this to YouTube, also to Spotify. I think we're going to be doing it on Spotify under the Collecting Enemies.
Yeah, we could do it under the Collecting Enemy label, and you'll still retain all the ownership and royalties for it.
Okay, we don't.
So.
Well, we
Yeah.
don't need to discuss that.
But yeah, it'll probably be on Collecting Enemies, on Spotify. Let's Get Scared probably on YouTube. That could be up for change at the moment. So yeah, you can go ahead and follow us there. Just be nice. It's my first time editing a podcast, especially. So
And it's
probably
also,
going to be a lot of mistakes.
It's also our first podcast together.
And in the future, we do plan to eventually kind of have better equipment. Also, make it a video, like a filmed podcast as well. So you
Everybody's going to have our own microphones and...
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things coming with this podcast, so I would hope you'd stay tuned.
Next week, I think we're going to be watching...
The Curse of Humpty Dumpty.
Yes, The Curse of Humpty Dumpty. It's going to be our first B horror film.
Yeah, we're excited for it.
We're excited. Yeah, we can probably cut it here.
And
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And I am Logan. This is Harley. Say hi, Harley.
Hi, Harley.
Or bye, Harley.
Bye, Harley.
And this is Trevor, and bye-bye.
And Liz.
And Liz.
And Liz.
Good night.
Samus,
Oh, also Samus. Our
Samus
cat.
says good night.